Villains being defeated is very much a normal thing in comic books. It happens every single day, but I think we can all agree that some villains actually make it pretty close to succeeding before it's all torn away from them. Today on Top 10 Nerd, we're counting down the top 10 villain downfalls that we can't believe happened. Number 10, Peter Parker versus Kingpin. If there's one thing you just don't do, it's messing with Aunt May. In the aftermath of Marvel's first Civil War event, after Peter had revealed his identity to the entire world, his past villains were all coming back to get some personal revenge. This put his family in danger, and despite his best attempts to protect them, when an assassin tried to bring him down, he dodged out of the way and Aunt May happened to be in the line of fire. This transitions immediately to the Back in Black Spider-Man arc, which saw Peter don his black spider suit again and go on a warpath to find out who was responsible for hiring the assassin. Eventually, Peter learns that it was none other than the kingpin of crime, Wilson Fisk, who hired the goon. Fisk was in prison at this time, but using an extremely large stash of cash that he somehow had hidden within his prison furniture, Fisk was able to get out of his cell, release the other inmates, and get about halfway through the prison before Spider-Man came crashing in. And after letting Kingpin monologue a tiny little bit, Peter proceeds to lay an incredibly savage beatdown on the Kingpin in front of an entire prison wing of his own underlings. But then, to make it even more personal, Spider-Man takes off his spider suit, since everyone knows his identity already, to show that it is indeed Peter Parker beating the snot out of him. And then he slaps the hell out of Fisk, threatens to spin webbing down his throat, and then explains how pathetic he is in front of all of his underlings, striking right at Kingpin's massive pride. Number 9, Emma Frost versus Storm. A bit of a lesser known rivalry between two comic book characters is the one between Aurora Monroe, Storm of the X-Men, and Emma Frost, the White Queen of the Hellfire Club. Back in the day, Emma was a villain more than anything else, and during Uncanny X-Men number 151 and 152, the White Queen ambushed Storm using her telepathic powers to swap their bodies. And then she enacted a huge plan for the Hellfire Club to attack the X-Mansion. After a whole lot of kerfuffle involving Kitty Pryde, Emma lost control of Storm's powers, and that gave Storm the opportunity to swap their minds back. Storm gets a massive tempest caused by Frost under control, and then she saves the White Queen's life from a massive fall, all heroic-like, but being a villain, Emma tries yet again to attack Miss Monroe, prompting Storm to straight up smack Emma with a massive bolt of lightning, fly up into the air, raging like the goddess she is, and then fly back down, grab Frost by the throat, and scare the diamonds right out of her by almost taking her life before Wolverine talks her down. It's fantastic, and I like Emma Frost, but sometimes I think I love Storm. Number 8, Mad Love. The Batman story Mad Love tells the tale of how the Joker manipulated Harley Quinzel into becoming his almost equally insane boo, Harley Quinn. Eventually, over the course of the story, Harley decides that she's going to try and do her bubby boo proud by capturing the Dark Knight and putting an end to his long crime-fighting life. The funny thing is that Harley Quinn basically gets all the way there. Harley is meticulous over every single detail and rechecks everything until Batman wakes up hanging upside down, dangling over a piranha-infested fish tank. This is when Batman pulls a trick out of his sleeve, because that's what Batman always does. First of all, he reveals the Joker's manipulation tactics to Harley Quinn, and that almost breaks the girl's heart. But then, he essentially tells Harley that unless Joker sees the deed happen himself, he would never believe that Harley could have taken out Batman. This gives Harley some grief, and so she calls up the Joker himself and informs him of the situation. This drives the Joker mental, as he can't stand the thought of his girlfriend stealing his spotlight. So much so that he basically causes her to go crashing out a window, and he frees Batman. In a moment of clarity, the Joker realizes that he could have taken the opportunity to take down the Batman himself. I guess he kind of forgot that he just leveled the playing field for the Dark Knight, who quickly gets the upper hand, and it leads to the Joker's defeat. After he admits to the Joker that Harley got closer to beating him than the Joker ever has, and then, as an extra slap in the face, he calls the Joker Puddin'. Number 7, Squirrel Girl versus Dr. Doom. Look, we're talking about comic books here, okay? Just keep that in mind. In Marvel Superheroes number 8 from 1992, in one corner, we've got the Fantastic Four's top enemy, the ruler of Latveria, the man who has wielded the power of the Beyonder, a man who constantly blends incredible technology with powerful magic and artifacts. Fueled by his massive deserved ego, it's the one and only Dr. Victor Von Doom. And in the other corner, we have the full, untested, unbridled powerhouse of the one and only Squirrel Girl. Their battle is the stuff of legends because it's completely not what you'd expect. We know from the title of this video that the winner is none other than Squirrel Girl. Summoning a monstrous horde of squirrels, Dr. Doom is completely swarmed and overwhelmed as he cries out, "My much vaunted technology decimated by these gnawing rodents." And he literally runs away, escaping through a trap door, diving into a river, and leaving behind his mask, which Squirrel Girl then takes as some kind of sick trophy. Squirrel Girl completely tore that man's pride straight from him and sent him running and screaming from a whole cacophony of squirrels. And this guy has ripped the spine out of Thanos. Number 6, Magneto beating Apocalypse. Magneto and Apocalypse are two incredibly powerful mutant villains with frighteningly similar goals, and yet we never really fully see them properly teaming up. But we also rarely ever see them fight each other, except in the Age of Apocalypse reality. In this world, the Mutant Legion had gone back in time in an attempt to bring an end to Magneto, but he inadvertently brought an end to Professor Xavier instead, which led to a completely different timeline where Magneto forms and leads the X-Men, and the Mutant Apocalypse has almost completely taken over the entire world. This all came to a head in X-Men Omega. Now, on paper, while Magneto is powerful with a capital P, when compared to Apocalypse, he should be a walk in the park for the second mutant to ever exist. Now, their fight going on simultaneously with about 3 or 4 other little skirmishes at the same time is intense. It's full of great lines, crazy twists and turns, but the best part is right near the end. Apocalypse has Magneto on the ropes, as we'd expect, and he gloats in his own glory, wondering why the Master of Magnetism is not fighting him back. Well, staring straight into Apocalypse's eyes, Magneto simply says, "I can't, I'm concentrating." And then they both look down to see Magneto's hands at Apocalypse's abdomen as he completely rips Apocalypse in two straight down the middle in the most awesome looking panel ever. It's so cool. Number 5, Darkseid. Darkseid is not a character you mess with. He is incredibly powerful with an insanely capable mind and the ability to practically never pass away. Sure, we could talk about his defeat at the hands of Batman, and maybe we will, but Batman's just a regular guy. But what we want to talk about right now is Volume 3, Issue number 2 and 3 of a comic called Superpowers. This comic was made to go along with a toy line, so we already should slightly suspend our knowledge of what various heroes and villains are actually capable of for right now. In the storyline, Darkseid's Omega effect has been dwindled down to almost nothing thanks to Mr. Miracle, Tyr, and Mr. Freeze. Now, after being betrayed by his people, he winds up teleporting to Earth with the last of his energy. Covered in a cloak, Darkseid is forced to rob just to find more clothes and remain unnoticed. But just after he does so, Darkseid is confronted by a pair of regular old muggers in an alleyway. Pair of regular human muggers who bully him, threaten him, and then knock him out cold with a chain just to rifle through his pockets and run off into the night. But the best part is how he looks up after with a big Darkseid frown and goes, "Oh, surely my plight can sink no lower." You never see Darkseid like this, literally ever. It's hilarious. Number 4, Batman vs. HyperClan. In 1997's JLA, helmed by Grant Morrison, a team of superheroes just show up on Earth and begin fixing problems and completely eradicating supervillains, gaining popularity with the people that rivals the Justice League itself. The difference here is that this team of superheroes, known as the HyperClan, are actually white Martians trying to set up a Martian invasion of Earth. Unsurprisingly, the first of the Justice League to find this out was Batman himself, who managed to evade being captured unlike the rest of the League, who honestly went down like a bunch of chumps. I'm just saying. After all the real heroes had been captured, the whole rescue was left up to Batman himself. Sneaking into the HyperClan's base, Batman managed to lure one of their members, a mortal, who he strung up in an honestly extremely brutal looking way with a little Batarang-held sign that read, "I know your secret." When 3 other members of the HyperClan showed up, Batman brought them down with a single match and a circle of gasoline, turning their one weakness, the Martian weakness to fire, into his greatest ally, because he's Batman. Number 3, the Marquis of Death. In 2009's Fantastic Four number 566, Dr. Victor Von Doom reveals to us and his people that he had learned almost everything he knows from one incredibly powerful reality warping villain called the Marquis of Death. This reveal comes right before he also announces that his former master is now on his way to see just how Dr. Doom had fared as ruler over the Earth. But as we know, Dr. Doom does not rule the Earth. Dr. Doom still only rules Latveria, and is one of the coolest villains around, but whatever. When the Marquis shows up with his mysterious new apprentice, he is less than impressed with the progress Doom had made on Earth, and so, to punish his old apprentice, he attacks. The Marquis completely warped reality into an alternate future to make Dr. Doom think that he had actually won their fight, and then he snatches this made reality away. He sets Doom on fire, turns his heart to stone and his blood to acid, and literally sends him back in time to the Pliocene age, dropping Doom in the ocean to be eaten by megalodons. Do you realize how insane what I just said is? Because it's crazy. That should be the point right there, but there's more. Over the course of the rest of the story, the Marquis goes on to fight the Fantastic Four, almost beating them and defeating them while simultaneously being worn down quite a bit. But then, almost out of nowhere, the Marquis' mysterious apprentice just shows up and completely slaps and destroys this reality warping villain in a swift move, but not before revealing that he is actually Dr. Doom. Doom had somehow managed to survive being eaten by megalodons and all the other things done to him. He gained enough power and dark magic to completely change his form. He traveled through time to become the Marquis' apprentice, even defeating Uatu the Watcher so he wouldn't be discovered, all just to hide in plain sight, waiting for the opportunity to get his revenge on his old master. It's so cool! Number 2, Black Panther and the Skrulls. Wakanda, like the other fictional kingdoms of Atlantis and Latveria, is protected by a man who will do pretty much anything to protect his people. T'Challa doesn't really have the luxury of sparing those that would do harm to his incredibly advanced home. But Wakanda is also one of the #1 places targeted when an invading force wants to take over Earth. So, taking those two facts into account, when the Skrulls try to invade Wakanda to start their mission of dominating the Earth, T'Challa, the king of one of the most advanced nations in the world, and his wife, Storm of the X-Men, one of the most powerful mutants alive, left those aliens with a clear message. After tricking the Skrulls into attacking their own men for information, the Skrulls send out their best warriors for the task of taking down the pair. But just as those toughest warriors are gone from sight, an army of Wakandan soldiers breaks into the Skrull ship and leaves not a single Skrull soul alive. While that happens, those toughest warriors are turned into pulp by Black Panther, with T'Challa using their bodily fluids to write "This is what happens when you invade Wakanda" on the bridge of the Skrull ship. Number 1, it's Darkseid. I told you we were going to talk about this. When Darkseid finally discovered the anti-life equation, he understandably wasted absolutely zero time finally putting an end to the eon-spanning, never-ending war between eugenesis and apocalypse. Now, as the one and only new god, Darkseid came to Earth and inhabited the body of a human being, using that unique position to slowly take control not just over Earth, but over pretty much all of creation. But us humans, we have rather squishy and frail bodies compared to someone like a new god. And because of the amount of power that Darkseid possesses, the body he decided to inhabit becomes rather worn down and basically begins to rot. But Darkseid had practically already won, so his guard was down. Those two things together, combined with the existence of a certain someone by the name of, Batman, equals disaster. Batman ends up breaking out of the prison that he'd been locked up in and gets his bat hands on a god-killing bullet made of radium. Batman makes his way to Darkseid, and with the villain at a physical disadvantage because of his body, Batman fires the final shot to bring him down. This god, who has taken on not just the entire Justice League, but like all of creation, gets beaten by Batman with a bullet. And there you have it. Thank you guys so much for watching on Top 10 Nerd. I'm your host, Adam Andrews. I'll catch you all on the flippity flop, but until then, stay safe and peace out, you nerds.